Apple just canceled the iPhone 14. Just kidding, obviously, but what if they actually did? Apple has released a new iPhone every single year for nearly 15 years. But what if this year they finally said enough is enough? What would happen if the iPhone 14 just didn't launch this fall? Would people go crazy? Would the world end? Would Samsung have a field day with their flipping, folding phones? Here are 5 reasons why the iPhone 14 should be canceled this fall, and why, as an Apple fan, I gotta admit that it might just be for the best. And a big thanks to Karma for sponsoring this video. Stay tuned to learn how you can win $500 to go on your own personal tech shopping spree. It's gonna be awesome. Stay tuned to learn more. In the Apple world, very few moments are as special as this. It doesn't matter how many times it happens, how many times you see it, there's something just so cool about watching this moment. The moment that an iPhone finally goes from concept and rumor to reality, and finally is announced and becomes official. Since that infamous original launch back in 2007 with Steve Jobs demoing the very first iPhone, we have gotten a new updated model every single year, and now it's gotten to the point that we just sort of expected. Of course, yes, some years were bigger upgrades than others, but every single year, there has been a brand new iPhone, if not multiple new iPhone models. But after we do sort of the same old thing every single year, it becomes increasingly easier to critique and criticize and claim that Apple just isn't innovating like they should. Like for the iPhone 14, been there, done that. We've talked about different viewpoints before. It's easy to expect bigger upgrades. You want more features, you want bigger designs. After we see the same thing every single year, it sort of makes sense that we just want something new, something different. Take the iPhone 14, for example. When we first heard rumors about that phone, it looked like this was gonna be the year to end all years, and it was gonna be one of the iPhone's biggest upgrades ever. The iPhone 14 was gonna bring this all new design, it was gonna get rid of the notch, it would have new materials, new colors, massive camera upgrades, maybe, just maybe USB-C on the bottom too. And as sort of seems to be the theme every single year, the closer we get to the actual launch of that phone, the more sort of shifty rumors start to fall to the wayside, and the more concrete ones begin to take shape. And now it seems like the iPhone 14 isn't gonna be all that different from the 13 or the 12, and it's gonna be essentially what we've seen for the past few years, with some notable upgrades, but not the massive revolutionary upgrade we had sort of come to expect. And yes, of course, I'll be the first to admit that the rumor mill is part of the problem here, and it's what's driving that narrative of the iPhone being boring. And if you sort of obsess over the rumors like I do, you're just bound to be disappointed because the phones just never live up to the hype. But putting that to the side for a moment, getting back to the original question here, what would happen if the iPhone 14 was just canceled? Whether it was done intentionally or not, what if Apple just didn't release a new iPhone this year and they waited until 2023 to release their latest and greatest flagship phone? What would actually happen, and would that be a good thing or a bad thing? Well, for starters, this would presumably give Apple more time to sort of work out the bugs and make sure the iPhone experience was absolutely perfect. And we know that Apple does work ahead on certain iPhone models, as they do sort of every year. They're sort of working ahead on the next generation. Like right now, the 14 is gonna launch this fall, but you better believe that Apple's already working on the 15 and maybe even the 16 as well to some degree, because that's just sort of how Apple works, and that's what they have to do to sort of keep in line with this crazy release cycle. But if Apple didn't have to follow this vigorous release cycle, maybe that would give them more time to refine features, maybe give them more time to add features, and you could potentially have just a better overall experience. Maybe this would give Apple the time they needed to add things like under-display Touch ID. Maybe this would give them the time to really sort of give you a better under-display Face ID system, to really remove the notch, remove the cutout. If Apple just had more time, they could give you the ultimate iPhone experience that you and I have always wanted, and this concept iPhone would be real if Apple just had more time. And if you think about it, this really isn't a crazy idea, because while the iPhone gets updated every single year, and that's what we have come to expect, that's not the case for a handful of other Apple products. The Mac, for example, different iPad models, accessories like the Apple TV, AirPods, all of those sort of get released sometimes in similar windows, but not exactly like clockwork every single year. And one of the advantages to that is that Apple can make bigger sort of generational upgrades. They can add more features, they can do more things, they can change the design because they're not locked to this rigid timetable when everything has to be sort of from concept to design and getting things approved and manufactured. They can sort of work at their own flexible pace and sort of release products when they actually want to. And sometimes that does lead to better upgrades. We saw, with the Mac Studio and the MacBook Pro, we're getting some amazing Macs on Apple's timetable, and maybe rushing things out actually gives us an inferior product. And obviously the world has not collapsed when Apple hasn't released a new AirPod set every single year. They haven't updated the Apple TV every 12 months. We have survived with other products, so could we just survive with the iPhone? And maybe if the iPhone 14 launched in 2023, maybe it'd have all the features we wanted. Maybe this would have the radical redesign. Maybe there would be no notch and Face ID would be under display. Maybe we would get Touch ID. Maybe we'd get new colors. Maybe some other really crazy new feature with the camera or with the display or with the port. Maybe we'd be better off if the iPhone actually waited until, it was ready to be released, whether that be the fall or sometime else. If Apple had more time, maybe we would get a better product. But as much as that's nice to think about, it's very wishful thinking, very optimistic. I don't think it's ever going to happen for a couple of big reasons that really all come back to sweet, sweet money. Now, before we continue with more on the fate of the iPhone 14, let's take a quick break because I want to show off an awesome tool that has totally supercharged the way I shop online, and it's here to change the way you shop online as well. And that, of course, is this video's sponsor, Karma. Now, for those who haven't heard of Karma, let me introduce you to one of the best ways to totally upgrade your online shopping experience and take it to a whole new level. It's a totally free Chrome extension that is here to change the way you shop online in so many really helpful ways. For example, I just moved into a new place and was looking to upgrade a lot of the dumb tech in the house to more modern smart home stuff, but the prices are always changing all the time on various different retailers. Luckily with Karma, I can not only easily organize all the smart home tech I wanted into various lists, but I could also automatically get notified when prices change, so I could jump on those deals and snag things at savings. It's super simple, so easy. Karma just makes it so simple. We also all know the pain of trying to find online coupon codes that are still valid in this century and still work, but luckily Karma's got you covered there as well. It'll automatically find and apply the best coupons at checkout so you can maximize savings. And I also love that it helps you keep organized by saving items you like in a shopping list from over 50,000 stores. And it easily lets you earn cash back on your online purchases. Karma just does it all for you. They do all the hard work. It's so simple, it's so easy, and just takes a couple of simple clicks to get all up and running, and you're good to go. So now is the time right now to upgrade your online shopping experience and let yourself shop better and easier with Karma installed. If you guys want to check it out for yourself today and learn more, hit the link down below or head to shop.karmanow.com/theapplecircle. Especially right now with all those spring deals and savings going on, you want to make sure you are maximizing your savings and also just shopping online in a more convenient and easy way with Karma installed to help. So again, learn more and check it out for yourself at the link down below, or head to shop.karmanow.com/theapplecircle. Since the early days of the iPhone, Apple has always been trying to win over everyone. Pros, non-pros, consumers, enthusiasts. Apple wants to have an iPhone in every single pocket around the world, but one of the issues they originally faced, at least here in the US, was the weird carrier structure, specifically with phone upgrades and contracts. Because it used to be, up until not that long ago, that if you wanted to buy a new phone, traditionally here in the US, that you would pay sort of an upfront fee, if maybe not a fee at all, depending on the carrier and the situation, and then you would be locked into a 2-year contract that the carrier would subsidize the price of the actual phone. They would pay a portion of that phone, or if not the whole price of the phone, as long as you committed to stay on their sort of network for 2 years. And that's how it worked in the early days. It worked that way on AT&T and Verizon and other carriers. You were sort of locked into a 2-year contract. So when you bought an iPhone, it was great, it was shiny, it was new, but then when the new model came the next year, you probably couldn't get it because your 2-year window wasn't up just yet. Yes, of course, there are ways to skirt around the system. People were opening up phantom lines, as they were called, to sort of get a new line so they could get the new phone. You could pay full retail for it, but for most people, they just waited and sort of were conditioned to upgrade their phone every 2 years because that's what the carriers told them to do. And I think Apple sort of realized this. They sort of realized the position they were in and that they wanted to sort of make sure that iPhones were getting to as many people as possible, but also that in order to sort of keep up with the cycle, they had to sort of do flip-flop years or tick-tock years. Tick being sort of the smaller upgrades. Those were the S years, the 5S, the 6S, those phones. And then the talk years, sort of the bigger upgrades, the 4, the 5, the 6, stuff like that. Apple sort of had the cycle where they'd give us a big upgrade, then a smaller upgrade, a bigger upgrade. So no matter when you jumped into that system, no matter when your contract was up, you could go into the store and get your hands on the latest and greatest iPhone, and Apple made money, the carrier made money, you got a new phone, and everyone was happy. The other sort of bigger issue here, the primary issue that Apple doesn't do this, and sort of putting other things to the side, is that technology evolves so fast, things change so rapidly, that a phone designed in 2020 wouldn't be a flagship phone in 2022. Now, to Apple's credit, they do really control a lot of that end-to-end of the iPhone. They control the hardware, they control the software, they do a lot of stuff in-house, like designing their own chips. So they could sort of future-proof a bit and sort of plan ahead to what could be coming and sort of build those phones around that tech. But as we know, things change so much that by the time Apple concepted, designed, approved, and manufactured the phone, it might already be out of date. And especially if Apple's working with third-party companies on third-party components, the components they sort of design their phones around in one year could be different and obsolete in the next year, and maybe the sizes change and stuff like that. There are too many different factors here that could inhibit a flagship phone from being released every other year, or every 3 years, or whatever the case may be. Sort of one of the benefits of doing this cycle is that you're really getting the latest and greatest cutting edge all the time, and you're not running the risk of something being developed and then being obsolete by the time it actually gets out the door and into consumers' hands. The other issue Apple has is the competition, because just if Apple themselves decided to release a new iPhone every other year, good for them, but that doesn't mean that Samsung and Google and Huawei and Vivo and others aren't going to follow that same path, even though we have seen them sort of adopt what Apple's doing in the past multiple times. But let's say, for example, that wasn't the case. So if someone wanted the latest and greatest phone, or they wanted the newest tech, you had a Samsung phone that was getting new updates and features every single year, but the iPhone wasn't getting it until every other year, which might not be a bad thing for some people, but for some consumers who want sort of the latest stuff, they might be swayed away from Apple to something else because it's missing some key piece of tech that came out that Apple just doesn't have because they're releasing phones in a slower fashion. The competition is definitely driving Apple to keep up their innovation and keep releasing new iPhones every single year. Just if you want to make money, you got to compete in the game. And bringing this sort of back to the iPhone 14, it's easy to look at the year-to-year improvements and say they're not really improvements. If the design didn't change, Apple didn't do this or that, it's easy to criticize and critique and say that innovation isn't happening. But if you sort of keep the context of the phone market in your head and sort of zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture, you sort of understand why things are the way they are, maybe a little bit more. That Apple isn't necessarily making this phone for the person who has the 12 or even the 13, that they're making it for the person who has the 8 or the 10S or who has a 7. They're putting it out there as their latest phone for whoever wants to buy it. Maybe that's the enthusiast, maybe that's the Apple fan, maybe that's the Samsung Android switcher, or maybe that's someone who just has an older phone who wants to make that upgrade, because for them, this is going to be a huge upgrade. I mean, even coming from an 11 or a 12, the 14 looks to be a pretty big upgrade. Even from the 13, depending on what you're going to do, especially with the camera, the 14 is going to be a good move. But especially if you're on a 10 or a 10S or a 7 or a 6S, whatever the case may be, going with the iPhone 14 might not look that different from the 13 on paper, but is going to be a huge upgrade for you and what your experience is going to be. Battery life is going to be better, the display is going to be better, things are going to be smoother, the camera is going to be way better. If you sort of think about the iPhone upgrade cycle with context, you sort of see why it's not so fair to criticize Apple for year-over-year upgrades when that's not always what they're trying to do, is make the latest and greatest flashy thing to appease those who just bought a phone 12 months or so ago. Anyways, I'm curious, what are you guys' thoughts on this? Do you think we'd be better off as consumers, as enthusiasts, as Apple fans, for Apple to release a new iPhone every 2 years or every 3 years? Do you think that's best? Do you think that Apple should stick with the release cycle they've been doing? Or do you think that we are just too easy to, critique and criticize? We're too sort of swayed by rumors, and we need to keep our mouths shut and just enjoy the tech that we have and not be so difficult and doubtful about what Apple's doing. Let me know your thoughts on this stuff down below. Again, I want to give a huge thanks to Karma for sponsoring this video and allowing us to do this super awesome giveaway to give back to you guys. So here's how it's going to work. 2 of you guys are going to win $500 Best Buy gift cards to go on your own personal tech shopping spree. Maybe pick up an iPhone SE, maybe an Apple Watch, maybe some AirPods. You can can actually do a lot if you spend that money wisely, and it's really simple to enter. Here's what you gotta do, and of course, all the details will be in the description down below. You gotta install Karma on your phone and computer if you don't already have it. You gotta create a Best Buy shopping list, and then add 3 items to that shopping list. Then let me know down below which 3 items you chose, and also include your Instagram handle so we can contact you if you guys won. Also, be very wary of fake accounts. If you get an official message from the Apple Circle channel with a video, a personal video, that is how you know that you won. I will give you a personal video with your name in there so you know it's not faked and it's actually legit, but be very wary of fake accounts. If you don't get a video, then it's probably not legit, so just be wary of that. This giveaway is going to run for the next 2 weeks, and of course, all the details on how to enter and all the rules and everything will be in the description down below. So good luck, happy entering, and get shopping with Karma now.